The Donahue family isn't just the hex-perfect neighbors. If you sit down and gather all the little details the writers scattered across the seasons, a picture emerges that's genuinely unsettling. They're not a sweet suburban family with bright smiles and a perfect lawn. In reality, they're the most toxic people in all of Orson, and the evidence is right there in plain sight. Nancy is slightly aggressive, and Ron is forever away on business trips somewhere. Sean is the golden boy. Everything's perfect with him. The daughters are sweet little girls in dresses. That's the whole problem. It's a sitcom, after all. But if you dig deeper, the picture changes dramatically. Nancy is the main antagonist of the show. I didn't make this up. It's written right into the scenes, just presented so subtly that you don't notice it at first. There's a moment in the second season. Mike and Frankie have a fight at the movie theater. Mike walks off to the men's room and Ron Donahue is standing there. Mike starts saying something about the conflict with his wife. And then Ron delivers a line that personally flipped my entire perception of this family upside down. He tells Mike, "Listen, you don't want to take the fight to a second location. Apologize right now." When I rewatched this with fresh eyes, I was honestly blown away. Hey, Axel gang, let's pause on that phrase for a second. Second location. What does that even mean? The first location is a public place. A movie theater, a restaurant, a party. A place where social decency stops a person from showing their real emotions. The second location is the car ride home. It's the bedroom. It's the kitchen where no one can see. And Ron Donahue, the husband of the smiliest woman in Orson, is telling Mike that you must never let a fight reach the second location, that you have to apologize immediately even if you're in the right. This isn't advice from a man in a happy marriage. This is advice from a man who is panicked about being alone with his wife after a fight. This is a guy who, by all appearances, has had this building up in him for years, and he's developed one single survival strategy: capitulate instantly, on the spot, in public, so that the thing that happens at home in the evenings doesn't happen tonight. This situation honestly looks just like my own relationship, but okay, that's a joke. In reality, Nancy, whom everyone considers the sweetest neighbor, is a completely different person at home. At home, she's the one her own husband is willing to publicly humiliate himself to avoid being alone with. Her smiles, her casseroles, her whole performance of kindness that's a mask she wears and forces the entire family to wear. And when the masks come off, there's something there that makes Ron flee to the golf course, to business trips, to the movie theater bathroom. Anywhere, as long as it's not the second location. Frankie and Mike are hiding in the laundry room during a dinner party and accidentally see, through the window, Ron and Nancy screaming at each other in the backyard. Screaming hard. And then another couple walks past and they instantly, like flipping a switch, snap on their smiles. Not in a second. Instantly. Humans don't switch that fast, unless they're doing it hundreds of times a week. This marriage is built completely differently on the inside than we imagined. Remember the scene from season 9, the episode, "Please Don't Feed the Hex." In short, Frankie starts bartering old junk from her house with Nancy in exchange for her food. A pie for a scarf, ribs for some nonsense. She thinks she's gaming the system. And at some point, Nancy brings over a frankly terrible peppered steak. Frankie complains about it. And then Nancy starts crying, tells Frankie she's having personal problems, that her marriage is in trouble, that she can't cope. Frankie is shocked, feels terribly guilty. She rushes home, makes Mike cook gorgeous ribs, goes above and beyond, brings Nancy a homemade meal to support her neighbor in a difficult time. Cut to the Donahue house. Nancy is sitting at her perfect table, calmly eating those ribs, and she shouts to her husband in the next room, "Ron, they fell for it." Fell for it. It was a cold-blooded, calculated plan. She staged an entire performance tears, confessions about her marriage, and emotional breakdown for the sole purpose of getting the Hex to cook her dinner. And Ron isn't even surprised. He doesn't say, "Nancy, what are you doing? Why did you deceive our neighbor?" Manipulating the Hex is their shared pastime. It's the thing that bonds them, possibly the only thing that still bonds them at all. Without exaggeration, this is one of the darkest moments in the entire series. But why specifically marriage problems? If the Donahues actually had a perfect marriage, Frankie simply wouldn't have believed it. She would have laughed and said, "Yeah, right, you too." But Frankie believes immediately, because Frankie, on some subconscious level, knows those two aren't doing fine. And Nancy uses that knowledge against her. She takes the most believable lie, one that's 90% true, and sells it for a plate of ribs. Nancy Donahue isn't naive. She's calculating. She keeps a mental ledger. When Frankie started tricking her with the bartering, Nancy didn't get angry and didn't get offended. She decided, okay, you want to play games, let's play. And she wiped the floor with her. Now let's take another moment many people remember but don't fully understand. The episode A Very Donahue Vacation. The Hex go on vacation to Mammoth Cave and Frankie invites the Donahues along. On this trip, Frankie unexpectedly pulls off something Nancy never could. She has a conversation with Nancy's rebellious son, Sean, and convinces him to take the MCAT. Frankie is thrilled, proud of herself. She loudly brags to Mike by the pool. And the younger Donahue daughter, Shelley, overhears this bragging. She runs to her mom. Mom walks over to Frankie at the pool and without a word, without a scene, without explanation, pushes her into the water. On paper, it's a funny scene. Slapstick. But if you actually think about it, what just happened? Nancy Donahue, president of the Booster Club, perfect mother, paragon of suburban virtue, physically assaulted her neighbor. Because that neighbor dared to be better than her in one single thing: motherhood. The one area where Nancy holds an absolute monopoly. And when that monopoly was shaken, she snapped. The mask cracked. A flash of rage burst through the perfect facade. Frankie later admits it herself. She hoped Nancy had pushed her on purpose, because that would be the only thing that proved Nancy had something human in her. Up until that moment, she'd thought Nancy genuinely had a flawless soul. Now let's talk about Sean, the eldest son, the family's pride. Student council president, athlete, straight A student, accepted to Notre Dame, prepping for med school. On the surface, any parent's dream. In reality, the biggest victim of this family. In season 7, Sean grows out his hair and beard in college, becomes a vegan, starts getting interested in liberal ideas. A completely normal process, a 20-year-old guy figuring himself out, separating from his parents. What does Nancy do? She doesn't talk to him. She doesn't try to understand. She doesn't ask how he's feeling. She cries. She sobs over his beard. She sobs over the fact that he doesn't eat meat. Every day she throws a tantrum. And eventually Sean caves, shaves his beard, abandons veganism, gets back in line. But not because he changed his mind. He says it himself. I couldn't take the crying anymore. That's it. A grown 20-year-old man killed his developing personality because he couldn't handle his mother's tears. That's the real Nancy Donahue. She uses tears as a weapon. This is textbook emotional blackmail straight out of psychology manuals. The child shows individuality. Mom collapses, turns into the victim, and now the child has to choose. Either you exist or mom does. And Sean chooses mom every time, because otherwise her tears will destroy him. By the way, there's a creepy moment in this same arc. Sean says he doesn't eat anything that has a mother. And Nancy responds, well, then you don't have a mother. Nancy's love for her own son is conditional. Stop being perfect and I'll withdraw my love. I'm not claiming this is the absolute truth, but based on everything I see in the show, that's how it is. The Halloween episode. Frankie is frazzled as usual. Nancy offers to take Brick along trick-or-treating. Frankie asks with a guilty face, you don't think this makes me a bad mother, do you? And Nancy, with a perfectly composed expression, replies, I don't think this makes you a bad mother, no. This doesn't. This specific act doesn't. But everything else, well, you know yourself. This is a masterpiece of passive aggression. A micro dagger, sharpened over years, and Nancy delivers it with such a calm face that in the moment, Frankie doesn't even realize she's just been stabbed. You could think this is all just the personality of one woman, but her kids are growing up in this system too. The daughters, Shelley and Dottie, and this is where the real twist begins. Shelley is the younger one, the same one who ran to tattle to her mother at Mammoth Cave. And there's another scene with her, she accidentally overhears Frankie talking behind Nancy's back, calling her suffocating. What does a normal 11-year-old kid do? Cries, runs to mom, tells on her. What does Shelley do? cold-bloodedly starts blackmailing an adult. In exchange for her silence, she forces Frankie to give up her hotel room and play Marco Polo with her in the pool, gets everything she wanted, and then turns Frankie into her mother anyway. Got everything and landed the blow. This is the behavior of a grown sociopath in the body of an 11-year-old girl. And the scariest part is that Nancy doesn't even suspect her own daughter is acting like a little mafioso, because Nancy is too busy micromanaging the length of Sean's beard. And one more Shelley story, the snow globe. Sue loses a snow globe that's important to her because it's connected to Sean. The globe ends up with Shelley. Sue begs her to return it. Shelley refuses, demands in exchange most of Sue's stuffed animal collection, takes full advantage of another person's desperation for material things, not for anything she needs for toys. This isn't cute childhood cunning. This is future Nancy in embryo form. With Dottie, it goes the other direction. If Shelley became Nancy too. 0, Dottie went to the complete opposite into anxiety. The carpool episode. The kids ride to school with Frankie. Frankie's running late, she's always running late. And Dottie literally has a panic attack. Not nervous, not annoyed. A panic attack. Over possibly being late to school. For one day, think about that. A child has such a catastrophic reaction to an ordinary lateness that she can't be calmed down. That's not normal. That's a symptom of a child who grew up in a family where the slightest deviation from the standard equals social death, where being imperfect means ceasing to exist. Dottie also has a speech tic. She adds an S to words that are already plural. And nobody is treating it. Nobody even notices. Except Brick, the kid from the bad Heck family. Perfect Mother Nancy doesn't notice her own daughter's speech issue, but she knows everything about her son's beard length. Season, episode, The Christmas Miracle. Sean is in med school. He gets bad grades 3 Bs and 2 Cs. Sean can't say out loud the letter that comes after B. He can't. The word C is taboo in this family. A forbidden word. The guy is over 20, he's in med school, and he literally can't say, I got a C. He says it as the thing that comes after B. That's how deeply the fear of a C is wired into his head. This isn't parenting, this is trauma. And you know what saves him in that moment? Sue Heck. From that wrong family. A girl who's been mediocre at everything her whole life, who's failed team tryouts 100 times, who's used to being in the middle. She tells him, listen, being average is okay. You can live in the middle of the pack. And Sean hears this for the first time in his life from another person. Not, you have to be the best, but you can just be a person. After this, they kiss for the first time, because Sue is everything his own mother isn't. Unconditional love which he's never seen at home. And finally, one last detail that I think completely escapes a lot of people. In the first season, Nancy calls her husband Joe one time, not Ron Joe. A few episodes later, he suddenly becomes Ron, and nobody ever mentions Joe again. Technically, it's a writing error. These things happen in sitcoms. But if you look at it from another angle, it's the truth accidentally slipping out. Nancy doesn't perceive her husband as a living human being to such a degree that in the moment, she can't even remember his name. To her, he's a function, a prop, part of the set decoration in the family theater. And that accidentally bled onto the screen, like the Freudian slip of an entire series. The Hecks are not a dysfunctional family. The Hecks are an honest family. Loud, messy, poor, but alive. They yell, fight, cry, hug, forget each other, and then find each other again. They're real. The Donahues are a performance. 2 adults afraid to be alone together. A son trained by tears, a sociopath daughter, a daughter with anxiety and a tic, and a matriarch who keeps this circus running every single day because without it, her entire identity collapses. And when you watch the show again, knowing all of this now, every Nancy smile reads differently. Every casserole, every let me help you neighbor. It's a position of superiority that has to be constantly fed. The Hecks aren't her friends, they're her lower baseline, the floor against which her perfection shines. Without them, she's nobody. And that's exactly why she will never leave them alone, no matter how much Frankie gossips about her, steals her food, or scratches her cars. The hex are her main drug, and that's what holds the whole thing together. If you knew anything else about this family that I missed, drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to break down every detail, and subscribe, because there are many more breakdowns of this show ahead.